do that, but I mean, I think that it's sort of frowned upon, and I think in our culture, specifically, well, no, of course not, but specifically, men are not supposed to be vulnerable. They're not even supposed to like divulge that they go to therapy, let alone they go to get peed on, you know. And also, I think that it's like a controlled space, like the man who comes to see the dominatrix knows that when he says, I want you to put giant panties on me and pee in my mouth, that the dominatrix isn't going to be like, oh my God, that's so gross and weird. And his wife might, you know, or someone he goes on a date with might. And I think that there's also like a Madonna whore type of thing where it's like their wife, they don't want to, you know, that's, they see that as totally separate.
Yeah, that's the excuse every skinny douche in my neighborhood uses for cheating on his wife. Like,
I
can't do that with my wife. That's
so
the mouth
pure.
that kisses my kids. Shut up, asshole. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like,
would you ever go to a dominatrix, Chris?
Would I ever be? Yeah, I think that'd be really cool. Actually, I've typically been the dominant one in most relationships, so I'd give it a shot.
I've never been. I've been fascinated by dominatrixes. I've read up on it, you know, and mostly not about like more the psychology of it. Yeah. Because I've wondered, like, where does a fascination like that stem from? But what I find also is, I think a lot of it comes from, like, not, I would say, I want to put it better, but not loving yourself enough.
Some of it, sometimes it doesn't. Like, I definitely had clients who were really self-accepting, and it was, like, kind of a joyful experience for them, but the majority, I would say...
most of them have low self-esteem.
Yeah, Danny, there's hope for you. This sounds like a suicide call right now.
No, well, what I'm saying is that...
He's like, most of them hate themselves, right?
As my self-esteem has gotten better over time, I've felt more dominant in my relationships. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, yes.
Yeah.
So the more I think well of myself, the less I feel like I would want to be.
But I think what she's trying to say is that it's the people in the positions of power who want a change-up.
But maybe these people in the positions of power, because I was thinking, initially my theory was that this is self-medication for people who feel they've done something wrong but haven't been punished for it.
But think about it, though. Like, I'm willing to bet that these places aren't filled with dudes who are like those, you know, nerds who have never gotten laid, who are playing World of Warcraft all day. You know what I mean?
You know, but there's a lot of guys who were that guy and never recovered from it, and now they're like Mr. Hotshot in their life, but they're still haunted by that past. And so a lot of the role plays that I acted out were like totally common. Was like, all right, you're gonna be the head cheerleader, I'm gonna be the big dork, and you're gonna like kick my books on the floor or be like, help me with my homework, and then dunk my head in the toilet.
Did you ever get like
so you guys have toilets to dunk in?
Yeah, and then one day an old dungeon master walks in and is like, I want you to be a level 12 elf.
Did you ever get like
face with an arrow.
Did you ever get like a successful like Mexican guy and like, I'm the day laborer and you hired me for the day?
Yeah, you know, people no, it's true.
I once did that with a chick as a joke.
You know, honestly, those were some of the only role plays that I wouldn't do. Like, a lot of the, like, gross, weird fetish stuff, I was like, whatever. It didn't matter after a while. But a lot of the stuff, like, people, racist ones made me really uncomfortable.
Were you ever a Nazi?
I wouldn't do that,
You were?
Were you a slave owner?
I had one session, and it was actually right before I quit. I had this one, and it wasn't actually a scene. He just wanted to, like, talk through it, and it totally freaked me out. Because at that point, I had gotten off drugs, and so I was, like, really awake for everything. And you know, because for a lot of it, I was like, whatever, it's my job. I wasn't, like, that emotionally, involved.
Right.
And then towards the end of it, I started to feel much more present and be like, what is this?
So how many people go in that they're just trying to do some emotional purging versus ones that are just like, hey, I'm into some crazy stuff?
Is there an anti-Semitism to it before you answer that? Like when these Nazi people, are they Jewish people mostly?
They would be Jewish people who come in
so
and
it's not like Holocaust deniers that are like, dress like a Nazi and be a pleasant person.
See, it can happen? Yeah.
No, it was always sort of the marginalized group wanting to enact their own sort of degradation. Always, yeah.
So
interesting.
Which
except for men who wanted, and that was the weird, it was like men, so a majority of my clients, like 80% wanted to come in, be like dressed as women or treated as women, and have me act like a terrible misogynist rapist.
Wow.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Why aren't you in on this?
What? Why aren't I doing this?
Why aren't you?
Because I'd be afraid I wouldn't do it right, and then I'm getting yelled at by the person.
Oh no, it's really easy.
I read your blog on your website.
Yeah.
And you were saying that you were initially afraid, and then you realize you already had the money and there was nothing to be afraid of.
Yeah, that they come in there with, they just take for granted that you're the expert, so you can't really go wrong. I mean, with some clients, but most of them, it's like, no matter what, they go into their fantasy, and, like, you can do...
Well, okay, walk me through your first day of work as a dominant. What am I getting into if I
Is
get
there a
into
training period? Do you shadow somebody else for a little bit?
You do. That's exactly what happens. It's
Really?
sort of an apprenticeship period where you go in, and like when I first started, I was totally starry-eyed because the place where I worked, like you picture it being like a dungeon, like a nasty basement with chains, and it's kind of like moist, you know, but it wasn't. It's like right in Herald Square on the second floor, and you take this unmarked elevator.
I just lost my phone in that neighborhood.
And it's gorgeous. Like the place I worked was huge, like 8 rooms, like 50-foot ceilings, chandeliers, like red carpets, like tons of equipment, full baths.
Describe
really
the equipment. What's the equipment?
The equipment is like, all right, so on my first day I walked in
They have
and
an elliptical and
no, they don't have an elliptical, but they do have like cages on that mechanical switch will like descend from the ceiling, stuff like that, and like big wooden crosses and big like wooden wheels. And when I walked in and got the tour for my interview, they had like, you go in and there's a whole wall covered with like floggers and whips and
Are there different like
gas
scene rooms?
masks and
Scene rooms?
Well, the place I worked specialized in medical, so we had 3 medical rooms. We had 3 medical rooms, 3 dungeon rooms, and 1 cross-dressing room, which just looked like a really girly dressing room.
That medical stuff sounds horrifying.
The medical rooms, that was actually kind of my specialty. But yeah, it was like, you know...
What do you do in a medical room?
You dress up like a nurse, and then there's like this whole spectrum of like meanness, you know, where some